Hi, I'm Hal Roberts. This is Bridge City News. Here's some of the top stories we've been following. A case involving a Lethbridge couple who face various charges involving their 6-week-old daughter was heard in court again today. A convoy to commemorate the 1-year anniversary of the Coutts border protest is taking place on Saturday. We have the details. And today is International Holocaust Remembrance Day. We hear from both Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre, who spoke about this special day.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Thanks so much for joining us. The case involving a couple accused of abusing their 6-week-old baby daughter was heard in Lethbridge court this morning. The baby's parents face various charges involving their child. Angela Stewart is covering this case for us. Angela, what can you tell us about what transpired in court earlier today?
Yeah, Hal, it was a very brief hearing this morning for the accused in this case. Now, both parents, who cannot be named in order to protect the identity of the victim, did not appear in court. The court heard on Friday the father is still looking to obtain a lawyer, but he has been approved for legal aid. The mother accused does have legal representation, and her case was adjourned to a later date. The pair are being charged separately. The 52-year-old father faces charges of aggravated assault, sexual interference, and failing to provide the necessaries of life. Meanwhile, the 31-year-old mother has been charged with failing to provide the necessaries of life. On January 18th, Lethbridge police were called to a north side home to check on the welfare of a 6-week-old baby girl. It's alleged the infant had been assaulted and sexually assaulted multiple times over the course of 6 weeks. Both parents were in the home when officers arrived. Now, the baby remains in critical condition at the Alberta Children's Hospital in Calgary. Both accused remain in custody at the Lethbridge Correctional Centre. Both cases will be back in court on February 3rd. Hal?
Thanks so much, Angela. Recent statistics say 43% of people in Alberta have experienced sexual violence in their lifetime. That's a staggering 1.8 million people. These numbers come from the Association of Alberta Sexual Assault Services. The group is saying there needs more to be done and more funding from the province for sexual assault support services and trauma counselling. Officials from the Chinook Sexual Assault Centre in Lethbridge told us the numbers are rising for those needing assistance.
What we've seen certainly in the last year is a 37% jump in those that are seeking out services from our sexual assault center. We don't anticipate that this is going to go down. In fact, we see that this is just going to continue to go up. We've seen this since the Me Too movement and the I Believe You campaign, and certainly with all the stories that come out in the media regarding things like Hockey Canada, people are much more emboldened to come forward and to seek those services. We know there's far more for us to deal with. This is just the tip of the iceberg. And so for us to have healthy Albertans, it really is important for us to invest and not wait for it to be even more of a crisis.
According to Stats Canada, in 2021, police reported sexual assault cases increased by 21% here in our province. Now here's a follow-up to a story we brought you earlier this week. A Lethbridge man, Patrick Rodney, has been charged in relation to one of our city's biggest drug busts of just over $1 million. Rodney was back in court on Thursday answering to various drugs and weapon-related charges, along with a charge of breaching his probation. His lawyer, Brad Krause, says he is waiting to receive disclosure from the Crown's office to help Rodney gain his release. The matter is set to return to court on February the 2nd. Lethbridge police and Lethbridge firefighters were called to a blaze inside of St. Francis Junior High School just before midnight on Thursday. Police say windows were pried open and a fire was set in 3 separate rooms. Members of K9 searched the building, but no suspects were located. The investigation continues. There is more help available for those battling addictions in both Lethbridge and Calgary. Tony Kokol is the operations manager for Fresh Start Recovery here in our city. He says what makes their program so unique is that they're all-encompassing in helping someone get their life back on track.
We believe in forward movement, more than just the drugs or alcohol. That's a given. Every treatment center will get you make forward movement with the drugs and alcohol. We believe recovery in all areas of our life, and we'll set goals such as employment or legal or housing or cultural or spiritual, and it's in those categories, those major life areas, we will sit with the individual and they will derive the goals that they want to move forward with.
Tony Kokol from Fresh Start Recovery will also discuss what their success rate is with clients who graduate from their program. Watch for the full interview coming up in the second half of our program. A convoy is being planned to the Coutts border to commemorate the one-year anniversary of the blockade by those who protested many of the government COVID-19 mandates. Organizer Shil Landry, who is with the Freedom Hub Lethbridge, says her group is also showing its support behind the 4 men who remain in custody accused of conspiring to kill RCMP officers during the protests last year. The group says they're hoping to raise funds to support the 4 men, Chris Carbert, Anthony Olenek, Jerry Morin, and Chris Lysak. Landry says the men are political prisoners and have lost a lot since they've been in jail without bail since last February. Landry explains the plan for tomorrow.
Tomorrow we are going to be doing a 1-year anniversary protest convoy to Coutts. And then we're going to, when we reach Coutts, we're going to actually turn and come back to Lethbridge for a fundraiser barbecue. And that's going to be at 3214 5th Avenue North in a giant wash bay. So we're pretty excited about that. We've got about 60 silent auction donations that we've received to raise funds for the 4 political prisoners that were arrested at Coutts and still being held in jail without bail.
Landry says more details about the Coutts anniversary convoy can be found on their Facebook page. Well, we had more of the white stuff again today in Lethbridge, and it may be sticking around for quite some time. Jeanette Rocher is here now with an early peek at the forecast. Jeanette, with colder temperatures expected this weekend, the snow may be sticking around for a while?
Right. Well, I guess you could say there's not a lot of opportunity for the snow to melt away, not with the temperatures that are coming at us this weekend. Now, we are expected to see some more flurry activity this evening, about a 60% chance, and an overnight low of -17. That's the coldest that we've seen in about a month or so. And then into Saturday, not expected to warm up much more than that. We're looking at a high of only -15 for Saturday. Expected to be fairly sunny, though, throughout the weekend and into next week, when the temperatures are expected to rise once again. And I'll be back later in the show to give you those details.
Thanks so much, Jeanette. Federal Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre addressed his caucus today. Poilievre says Canada is broken. Now, he says he does agree, however, with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, who says Canadians have never had it so good. Well, at least certain Canadians.
The $1,000 a day consultants at McKinsey have never had it so good. In fact, the consulting contracts that he's given up have gone up 100% in the 8 years since he took office. Justin, these people are very grateful to you. That's why they are donating so much to your party. The lobbyists, whose contracts have also increased by 100%. Justin, they've never had it so good either. All of the political staffers around the Hill that are giving out these contracts to their long-term friends, they've never had it so good either. And with your $6,000 a night hotel rooms, you've never had it so good yourself, Justin. But let me tell you something, Justin. There is pain in the faces you do not see. There is suffering in the voices you do not hear. And there is distress and even chaos in the places you do not go.
Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre and Prime Minister Justin Trudeau also delivered remarks at a ceremony in Ottawa earlier today to mark International Holocaust Remembrance Day.
In times of peace, we shake our heads and look back at this atrocity, bewildered at how it could ever have been permitted to happen. We wonder what could ever have driven people to such cruelty. But hate never overtakes us all at once. It creeps up, inch by inch. Lately, we have seen hateful and anti-Semitic rhetoric coming from dark corners of our society.
Today, we honor the lost, celebrate the victims, and condemn the perpetrators of the most comprehensive act of evil in the history of our world, the Holocaust. In particular, we commemorate the liberation of Auschwitz and Birkenau. Every year, a group of survivors, their family, and supporters participate in something called the March of the Living. I was honored about a decade ago to march with them. It's a march from the very first concentration camp, Auschwitz, to the most deadly death camp, Birkenau. Every year, the march becomes more difficult as the survivors grow in age.
The federal government has appointed Canada's very first special representative to combat Islamophobia. Officials say the new rep, who is a journalist and a human rights advocate, will serve as an advisor to fight religious intolerance and systemic racism.
This position, as Minister Hussein mentioned, is one that came about through the support and advocacy of Muslim communities and their allies to address a painful, even deadly reality of Islamophobia in this country, a reality that each and every one of us in this room and beyond are determined to change. It's our hope that we can use this moment to spur a national conversation about the value of Canadian diversity, including the richness of Canada's Muslim communities in our collective success as a nation.
The U.S. Justice Department has charged 3 men as part of an Iran-backed plot to kill an Iranian-American author and activist, Masih Al-Niyajad, who has spoken out against human rights abuses in Iran.
He alleged that Medvedev and his co-conspirators, Polad Omarov and Rafat Amarov, are members of an Eastern European criminal organization with ties to Iran. As alleged in the indictment, the government Iran has previously targeted dissidents around the world, including the victim, who opposed the regime's violations of human rights. The indictment, unsealed today, alleges that individuals in Iran tasked defendant Amarov with targeting the victim in a murder-for-hire plot. Amarov, who resided in Iran, is a leader of the Eastern European Criminal Organization. The victim in this case was targeted for exercising the rights to which every American citizen is entitled. The victim publicized the Iranian government's human rights abuses, discriminatory treatment of women, suppression of democratic participation and expression, and use of arbitrary imprisonment, torture, and execution.
Canada continues to wrestle with the ethics of assisted suicide, otherwise known as medical assistance in dying, or MAID. Angelina Ireland is the president of the Delta Hospice Society in British Columbia. She says her privately owned hospice, which provides palliative care, was taken over by the Fraser Health Authority when her organization refused to offer MAID to their clients.
I mean, that's why our story became international news. Because in fact, these are 2 separate streams of healthcare. Palliative care and MAID, never the two should meet, in a medical discipline sense. But however, they've now been pushed together. And we have stood to say that in fact, they're not to be together. We are not going to say anything to people who want to access MAID. What we are going to say is that those people who have no interest should be given the same rights.
Make sure you catch the full interview with Angelina Ireland and BCN's Naveen Day coming up in the second half of our program. The Milk River Emergency Department will remain closed until Monday due to a lack of doctors. Alberta Health Services says nursing staff will remain on site to provide care to long-term care patients. Those who do have an emergency are asked to call 911. EMS calls will be routed to the hospital here in Lethbridge or to the Raymond Hospital. The Milk River Emergency Department will reopen again Monday at 8 a.m. Now here's a day to mark down on your calendar. The Lethbridge and District Exhibition announced that this year's Whoop Up Days Parade will take place Tuesday, August the 22nd at 9 a.m. here in Lethbridge. The parade, which has been around since 1897, showcases a wide variety of floats from businesses, including Bridge City News and other community members. The event is a celebration of our diverse cultures, unique heritage, and innovative future. Organizers say applications for this year's parade will be available on the exhibition's website beginning in April. Looking forward to that. A special roundtable discussion was held at the University of Lethbridge earlier today. The purpose of the event was to generate conversation around successful collegial governance on university campuses across Canada. The U of L Faculty Association hosted the event. Now, the group's president, Dan O'Donnell, discussed the importance of hearing voices from other post-secondaries and what can be learned from them.
Governance in universities is really a type of thing that is crucial to the enterprise. You can't do ethical research if you don't have academic freedom, if people can't make decisions as a result of what's coming in their experimentation, or if people can't think the kind of thoughts that challenge societal convention. But too often at universities, what happens is we get really caught up in the day-to-day interaction between faculty members and students and administrations and boards. And so what we wanted to do here was really stand back, open that question up to why is this essential? How is it that we keep it going? While also recognizing the need to, spend taxpayer money wisely and make sure that students are being educated well and research is happening.
The increasing demand for tradespeople in our province continues to grow. High school students from across southern Alberta made their way to Lethbridge College to get a first-hand look at a few of the trades programs. The initiative is called the Introduction to the Trades Dual Credit Pathway Program. As BCN's Micah Quinn explains now, officials from the college told us why this program is so important to help grow the trades.
There is a real demand and a shortage in the skilled trades right now in Alberta, and so that's part of the rationale for the development of this program.
The 15-week course showcases 12 trades programs offered at the college, and officials explained to us exactly how it works.
Students are enrolled at both their high school and the post-secondary, and they earn credit for both courses simultaneously, and so they do a little bit of work online. Following that, they have some on-campus experiences where they get to come and touch and see our spaces and work in those spaces. We've got everything from baking to welding to carpentry, plumbing. There's quite a list.
Students from 7 different school divisions around southern Alberta will visit the college 8 times this semester.
I've always been interested in the trades. I like getting hands-on work, and I like making pretty good money right out of high school and college. So I thought about that, and then had a friend who's a teacher, and they found out about the program, and I was the first kid signed up for my school.
Staff from the college told us they will be offering the program once again in the fall of 2023, which will allow students to enroll in programs that are more subject-specific. For Bridge City News, I'm Micah Quinn.
Well, it was a little treacherous driving in many parts of southern Alberta today with all of the snow and the ice, and the white stuff will be sticking around for a while now. A full look at the weather picture is coming up. We've had some very slippery road conditions here in the city, lots of icy streets. Jeanette Rocher is in now with all of the weather details. Sadly, Jeanette, no Chinook is in the forecast to melt away all of that ice and snow.
No, Hal, no Chinook, at least in the immediate forecast. We are expected to hit those plus temperatures once again towards the latter part of the week. But for now, this is what we're dealing with this weekend. We're looking at highs of minus 15 on Saturday, minus 18 on Sunday, up to minus 9 for both Monday and Tuesday. Expecting to remain fairly sunny, and then high of minus 3 on Wednesday, and then there we go. There's that plus on Thursday, 2 degrees. Now, the average high for this time of year is minus 1, average low minus 13. So we are going to be dipping down below that, unfortunately. 13 degrees was our high temperature on this day back in 1988. And in 1972, 51 years ago, it was minus 38. That was the record cold. 8:11, that's when the sun rose this morning. Sun set this afternoon at 5:17 p.m. So now we are in the 9 o'clock, over 9 hours of daylight, about 9 hours and 6 minutes. So we're doing pretty well there. On the west coast tomorrow, Victoria, high of 6 degrees, clearing also in Vancouver tomorrow, high of 6, minus 16 in both Edmonton and Calgary tomorrow. Now that whole corridor in Alberta there between the two cities, they got dumped on today. We saw pictures on Twitter of people in the ditch. The QE2 was backed up in Calgary, of course, expecting a few more flurries tomorrow as well. Minus 20 in Saskatoon, minus 21 in Regina, and minus 22. Those are the highs tomorrow across the prairies. Expecting sunny skies there, but also wind chill and a risk of frostbite. Zero rather. So the temperature remaining steady at 0 tomorrow in Toronto. Looking at a 40% chance of flurries there. Chance of flurries mixed with some showers in Ottawa tomorrow. Montreal also expecting sprinkling of showers mixed with flurries tomorrow. Fredericton, high of 2 degrees, much the same thing there. Showers mixed with flurries. Same thing for Halifax, high of 3 degrees, minus 1 the high in Charlottetown, and minus 2 the expected high tomorrow in St. John's, Newfoundland. So there you have it. That is your forecast.
Today's weather report is brought to you by Bridge Utilities, providing competitive rates for electricity, natural gas, and internet, while investing back in communities across southern Alberta.
The federal government posted a deficit of $3.6 billion in the first 8 months of the current fiscal year. That is down from $73.7 billion during the same period in 2021 and 2022. The Federal Finance Department's latest fiscal monitor shows government revenues were up 14.8% from a year ago to $35.5 billion. It says that was largely due to improvement in economic growth and the fading effect of the pandemic. Program expenses, excluding actuarial losses, declined 13.9% to $40.4 billion. That was largely due to COVID-19 measures expiring. Canfor Corporation released more details about its restructuring plans in northern British Columbia. The Vancouver-based forest products company says around 157 employees will face layoffs in April or May when it shuts down its sawmill and pellet plant in Chetwynd, west of Dawson Creek. It is also closing down a sawmill in the town of Houston while it builds a new facility there, affecting around over 300 jobs. Total Energy's EP Canada is expanding its stake in the Fort Hills oil sands project. It is acquiring part of the shares Teck Resources put up for sale. Teck announced last year it would sell its 21.3% stake in the project to Suncor for around $1 billion. But Total Energy says it exercised its preemption right to acquire just over 6.5% of the project from Teck for $312 million. The deal brings the company's stake in Fort Hills to 31.23%, while Suncor will own the rest. Stock in American Express jumped 10% in trading, despite reporting weaker than expected results in the fourth quarter. Amex says its profit fell by 9% from a year ago to $1.57 billion. Officials say the credit card giant had to set aside more money to cover potentially bad loans. The New York-based company gave a forecast of earnings through 2023 that topped Wall Street's expectations and announced a planned increase to its dividend. Now is a look at today's markets. The TSX was up 13 points on the day to finish at 20,714. The Dow was up 28 points to 33,978. The S&P 500 was up 10 on the day to 4,070, and the Nasdaq was up 109 points to 11,621. West Texas Intermediate Oil was down $1.33 to 79.68 U.S. per barrel. Natural gas was up 17 cents to 3.11 U.S. Gold was down $1.17 to 1928.04 U.S. an ounce, and silver was down 31 cents to 23.60 U.S. an ounce. Feed wheat is at $12.08 per bushel, barley's at $9.25, canola's at $18.25, and corn is at $11.30 per bushel. Live cattle February contract was unchanged at $156.73. Feeder cattle January contract was up 63 cents to $183.48, and lean hogs February contract was down $1.15 to $75.88. The Canadian dollar was up slightly over the past 24 hours to 75.13 U.S. Recapping one of our top stories, Lethbridge Court today heard that the man accused of abusing his 6-week-old daughter is still trying to obtain a lawyer and has been approved for legal aid. The 52-year-old faces a long list of charges, including assault, sexual assault, and failing to provide the necessaries of life for the baby. The child's 31-year-old mother also faces a charge of failing to provide the necessaries of life. The couple remains in custody and will be in court on February the 3rd. The president of the Delta Hospice Society in BC says their privately owned hospice, which provides palliative care, was taken over by the Fraser Health Authority when her organization refused to offer May to their clients. Watch the interview with Angelina Ireland with the Delta Hospice Society and BCN's Naveen Day shortly. If you see news happening in your community, be sure to send us an email at info@bridgecitynews.ca. We'd love to hear from you.
Here's today's Bridge City News community calendar. The Family Center downtown Lethbridge is providing a weekly opportunity for dads, uncles, and grandfathers to play and connect with their children. Me and My Dad takes place on Saturdays from 10 to 11:30 a.m., featuring fun, brain-building activities for male caregivers to play with their kids. This program is free and open to children under 12. For more information and to register, visit famcenter.ca. On Saturday, February 25th, Streets Alive Mission is hosting their coldest night of the year fundraiser. This family-friendly walk is to raise money to help those who are experiencing hurt, hunger, and homelessness. To register, donate, and to find out more information about this event and Streets Alive Mission, visit cnoy.org/Lethbridge. And that's today's Bridge City News Community Calendar.
Canada continues to wrestle with the ethics of making assisted suicide available to minors and those with mental illness. Today's guest joins us from Delta, BC to discuss this further. Angelina Ireland is the president of the Delta Hospice Society in Delta. Welcome to Bridge City News, Angelina.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Okay, now, before we begin speaking about assisted suicide, otherwise known as medical assistance in dying, or MAID for short, can you explain what the Delta Hospice Society is all about? What is your mission and your goals?
Yeah, the Delta Hospice Society is a 30-year organization, and we are committed to palliative care. And palliative care is end-of-life care. It is a very noble 50-year medical discipline that basically helps people in their last days to live well until their natural end. And palliative care does not include MAID, assisted suicide, euthanasia, or whatever they're calling it these days.
Okay, now can you share some of your backstory? Because you ran into some opposition on your pro-life stance. And how and why did the government decide to push you out and take over the palliative care operations of the Delta Hospice Society?
Right. So, as a private organization, we fundraised about $9 million to open a hospice, a palliative care facility back in 2010. As a palliative care organization, we are committed to the authentic, medical discipline. When MAID legislation came through, the province of British Columbia then told us that we would have to provide that kind of service. Now, our organization, we leased land from the Fraser Health Authority. We had a 30-year lease. And then we got a contract to provide 10 palliative care beds. So when we refused to participate in MAID, because it's against our mission and our reason for being, the government canceled our contract.
Wow.
Which, for us, that was fine. It was $1.5 million a year. And we were very happy to privately fundraise that amount. But what they also did was they took a step forward and they canceled our lease. With 20 years left on that lease, the Fraser Health Authority told us that we were going to have to get off that land. Now, our hospice and supportive care center that we privately built on that land then became fixtures to the land. So essentially, they evicted us from our hospice, from our own building, told us to get out because we refused to kill our patients. So basically, we were evicted in March of 2021, and the Fraser Health Authority then took over our hospice 2 weeks later, reopened it, and then now offers MAID in that facility.
Wow, that's shocking. Now, I understand that there's ongoing debate whether the Delta Hospice Society is a public institution owned by the government or if it is actually privately owned, which would seem to make the government actions illegal.
No, the Delta Hospice Society is a private organization under the BC Societies Act. So no, the government does not own anything that we have to do because we're private. The only thing the government had to do with us was, first of all, providing that contract with a private provider, canceling that contract, and then canceling the lease that we had on the land on which we built that hospice facility.
Now, moving forward, what are the options for the Delta Hospice Society? Like, are there any possibilities of being allowed back in your building to run a euthanasia-free palliative care center where the patients will feel safe?
No, I don't think so. Certainly not with the current government that we now have provincially and even federally, quite honestly. The only thing that we ever wanted to do in our 30-year existence was to provide authentic palliative care. But what's happening in this country is like I will call it a coercive makeover of what palliative care is. That makeover is something that we never had any interest in participating in. We wanted to be authentic, traditional in our delivery of palliative care because, we have a very large constituency who wants our services. We're not speaking to the people who want MAID. We're speaking to the people, we're representing the people who don't, who want that authentic and traditional end-of-life experience. Those are our supporters, and that's our constituency. But apparently, that's not welcome in the current regime. So we're here. We continue to want to provide those kind of services. So we'll see what happens in the future.
Now, I understand that you're getting a lot of requests for the do not euthanize advanced directives. Can you explain how this works?
Yeah, so this is a legal document that has been vetted and produced by a lawyer. And we have produced one for every province in Canada, which basically is the mirror of the DNR, which is a do not resuscitate advanced directive. So our people want to make it very clear that, yes, in fact, we want to have everything that doctors can do to preserve life as opposed to take our lives.
And now you have something called the Guardian Angel program. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so what we find here in British Columbia is that the public healthcare system basically now has a monopoly on every patient, on every service, and every private organization like we were that used to partner with the government has been pushed out. And so what we're saying is that, okay, if the government wants to provide everything, then we want to ensure that, in fact, they're doing it right, that they are providing all the services that they claim to be providing. So a Guardian Angels is like a health advocacy program, which will match volunteers with people inside of the healthcare system to advocate on their behalf, because sometimes when people are very ill, they don't have the energy to speak for themselves, and they need people who are well to help to communicate that, in fact, they want palliative care, that they want the services that they have a right to access, and they don't want MAID. And so that's where we fit in now in terms of being able to help people access palliative care and that authentic, traditional type of care.
Now, do you have any stats on whether or not patients are being pressured by medical staff or by family members to sign papers to request assisted suicide?
Well, we have, I'll call it anecdotal evidence. We have people calling us all the time, saying that they are being pressured. It is truly just a standard form of everyday activity now to suggest to people that they have MAID. Look, what? That's not even legal, but that's what's happening. People are supposed to bring it up themselves. They're supposed to suggest it themselves, not doctors, nurses, people with a tremendous amount of power in that relationship to suggest it to them. So yes, in fact, we have people calling us all the time saying that they feel like that's being their suggested course of care. That's not right. That's not what anybody signed up for.
Where is Canada at now with possibly allowing for assisted suicide for those with sole underlying conditions such as like mental illness and depression? Is this really going to happen?
Well, of course, because Bill C-7 was passed last year, or is it now 2 years ago? Everything's like a blur to me. Everything's going so quickly. So they have truly committed to. This allowing of people with mental illness was only a sunset clause in that legislation. And basically it was to allow probably, doctors and everyone to get ready. So of course it's going to happen. There's been a bit of a pause. The federal government has, put a bit of a pause in terms of not forcing that to happen March 17th when it was supposed to. But I don't think for a moment that it will not happen because, this government is committed to allowing anybody with an intolerable situation, which could mean a whole number of different things, to access MAID. So I believe it's just a matter of time.
What would you like to see the government put in place to provide proper palliative care for those nearing end of life?
A number of years ago, the government was committed to, promoting palliative care unanimously in the House and the Senate to providing palliative care to Canadians. What we've seen is really that promise has sort of gone by the wayside. We would like to see, and I can't be political, right? Because, we're a not-for-profit organization. We're not supposed to be political, but what we can say is that, we are advocating for palliative care. That, we want to see it as a right to every Canadian to be able to access it. Just as there's now apparently a right for every Canadian to be able to access death. So, we think that it should be equal. That's all we're asking for. We're asking for access. We're asking for commitment by the government to allow people to access palliative care. We see now that maybe only 30% of Canadians can access true, authentic palliative care. We truly deserve more than that, as a nation. And that's all we're asking for, is equal access under the law to allow people authentic palliative care to die in a manner which is, dignified and respectful to their natural end.
It almost seems that palliative care and MAID, they're paradoxical to each other. And so this is quite perplexing news to hear that you're providing palliative care but yet you're not offering MAID, and then you get kicked out of your own building.
Oh, yes, indeed. I mean, that's why our story became international news. Because in fact, these are two separate streams of healthcare. Palliative care and MAID, never the two should meet, in a medical discipline sense. But however, they've now been pushed together. And we have stood to say that in fact, they're not to be together. We are not going to say anything to people who want to access MAID. What we are going to say is that those people who have no interest should be given the same rights, the same dollars in our public healthcare system to access a palliative care model.
And I'm sure the viewers that are hearing this for the first time are just shocked at this news. So what can they, our viewers, do to help the Delta Hospice Society in their fight for life?
Well, we ask you to become a member. We're a member-driven organization. Become a member at deltahospicesociety.org. Stand with us. It has been a tremendous battle just to survive in the last 3 years. We've been not only attacked by the government, we've been attacked by private lobbyists, private activist groups. Dying with Dignity Canada came after us personally to try to shut us down, to silence our voices. Look, there's room for all of us. There must be room for all of us in this country. We don't ask for anything that is outrageous. We ask for a place for our people who want to access our services. Anything less would be a disservice to this country. And so that's why we continue to stand and continue to fight just for a place.
Now, Angelina, you're one of the speakers at the Canadian Religious Freedom Summit taking place in Ottawa on February 4th. Can you tell us a bit about this event?
I think that ultimately, we gather to ensure that we do have access to freedom of speech, freedom of religion, the freedoms that are guaranteed to us by our charter, by our Constitution. And apparently, we're not going to be able to just have those guaranteed freedoms unless we continue to fight for them. And in a pluralist society, it should be a given that we're allowed to have that voice. But apparently in this country right now, it is not. And so, we gather to speak about the things that are important to us, and to just make people aware that, what's important to you, you must stand to defend it. Because if you do not, it will disappear.
Well, thanks so much for being with us today, Angelina. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today.
Thank you.
Many of us know someone who is struggling with some sort of addiction that's negatively impacting that life, and very likely the lives of many other family members. Now, one of the recovery programs that's been having a lot of success has a centre right here in Lethbridge. It's called the Fresh Start Recovery Centre, and we're pleased to be joined by the group's operations manager, Tony Kokel. Tony, welcome to Bridge City News.
Thank you.
Now, what is Fresh Start Recovery really all about? What is it that you guys offer?
Fresh Start Recovery is, we have two centers, one in Calgary, one here in Lethbridge. We have a 30-year history, and what we are is a long-term residential men and women's treatment center. We primarily deal with drugs and alcohol. We have a 14 to 16 program.
So who do you think really should be coming to your center for help, not just here, but in Calgary as well?
Everyone that's affected, every adult. We are an adult-based center, and every adult that deals with drugs or alcohol is more than welcome at our center.
You know, Tony, there are many recovery programs across the country. What really sets yours apart from other programs?
I think it's our culture. It's our culture that we've created over 3 decades of, and it's one of compassion and empathy and understanding. We come to the table with lived experience which allows us to understand, I think, at a deeper level, but we also come to the table with academia, with knowledge of many modalities of treatment. And we do a very comprehensive assessment when the individual arises and try to deliver a client-based service for that individual's needs.
Now, obviously, you have programs to help different persons' individual needs. What about First Nations cultures? How can you really be sensitive to their needs too?
Well, being cognizant of their needs first, it's a sense of awareness of what their needs are and their where they come from and who we have as a client, and again, it's very client-centered. When an individual comes, what we'll do is we've broken up the recovery process into 12 major life areas, and we'll set goals in those major life areas. We believe in forward movement more than just the drugs or alcohol. That's a given. Every treatment center will get you make forward movement with the drugs and alcohol. We believe recovery in all areas of our life, and we'll set goals such as employment or legal or housing or cultural or spiritual, and it's in those categories, those major life areas, we will sit with the individual and they will derive the goals that they want to move forward with. And this is where our team will sit with the individual and assist that individual on moving forward with the goals that they see fit and that will complement their recovery. So it's very much what the individual wants. We will cater to their needs and assist them to reconnect with their culture or their religion or whatever they deem fit for their well-being.
Now, Tony, you battled addictions yourself, and you know firsthand about the challenges and struggles of battling those addictions. Can you share a bit about your story and your journey?
Yes, I'm I'm an alumni of the center myself. Back in 2008, I came through the center. I was myself wrapped up into the drug culture for 3-4 years prior to cleaning up. I was homeless. I used to work in the oil field. I was very successful. I was a tool pusher, a rig manager on a rig for close to 12 years. I consulted, and my drug use ultimately led me to homelessness and to loss of everything that was actually dear to me. Everything that was dear to me, I ended up losing. And I ended up in prison and ended up at the doors of Fresh Start, and found a place that accepted me when no one else would, and was willing to work with me and get me back on track, get me back to a point where I had the confidence and the support to transition back into the community. And I'm very passionate about the program because I know it works. It's an easy sell for me because I've seen it, I've lived it, and I've seen hundreds and hundreds of people embrace this program and be able to go back into the community, be able to go back to their family, be able to step back into those roles of father, of son, of mother, of sister.
Everybody has a different rock bottom in their lives before they decide, you know what, I need to seek help and reach out to somebody because I want to turn my life around. Was prison the rock bottom for you?
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. It was profound for me. It was only until I was there that I realized the tragedies that occurred in my life, and the things that I've done to the people around me. It was that time of sitting at that bottom, and I didn't get to escape it. I didn't get to move forward. I had to sit in there and sitting in that place of solitude and incarceration made me. I was forced to look at what I did to the people around me, and the realization that I was alone, realization that I ended up in a place where society put me that, they didn't want me back, and that was a huge eye opener where I was faced with either embracing that lifestyle or moving forward and getting back into the stream of life, and I chose life, and thank God that there is agencies and supports out in the community that can assist an individual to move forward if they're willing to do that.
What happened with your friends and family? Did many people abandon you, or did they stick by your side through the whole process?
No, at the end of it, by the time I cleaned up, I was 46 or 47, and the nature of addiction is very self-centered. It's I heard a phrase once is, it's not a spectator sport. The whole family gets to play. And because it's such a self-centered disease, I broke a lot of hearts, and I abused a lot of relationships, and I lied, I cheated, I stole, I did these things, and a lot of the friends just had to walk away. It was intolerable behavior, and my family, they had to turn their backs too. Basically to protect themselves, and I ended up at a place where all alone, I think with the family it was more tough love. I think with friends, a lot of them were just fed up. And I know that is because 15 years later, these relationships are back in my life, and I've been able to speak with my family members and friends and talk about what they experienced during that time, and I don't blame them whatsoever. I think they were more tolerable than I probably would have been. It's how do you want someone that you love slowly kill themselves and throw away their lives without being affected?
Now at Fresh Start Recovery, there's a family healing program for clients. Tony, how does that work?
Yeah, that's correct. We have a family healing program. It's not only for our clients, it's more directed to the parents or to the children or to the wives or to the husbands. So it is a family disease and everybody gets affected, and one of the family members will take blame, or they won't know how to deal with it, or they'll enable. And what the family healing program does is allow the family members to heal as well. It's great in that sense that the whole family as a unit has to heal to get well. As the addict is on his journey, and as he takes that road and slowly descends, the family feels that, and they have a tendency to embrace certain behaviors. And the program, family healing program, will gently taps the family individuals on the shoulders and puts forth to them some of these traits that they may have been embracing, and some of their thinking that may be incorrect, and to set them on a healthy place where they're still supportive, but they're not blaming or they're not enabling the client, and allows them to take care of themselves and to get well.
So Tony, from your experience, how much of a part does our spiritual and our physical health really play in recovery?
It's huge. It's huge. One of the premises of treatment, of recovery, is that they'll break it up, just to simplify it, they'll break it up into 4 areas of mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual. So if that's 100%, each of those categories own 25%. However, the spiritual component is at the center of that, of those percentages, and everything revolves around that. And it's the spirit inside of us. That spirit is we need to take care of. And is that spirit inside of the individual? Is it confident? Is it full of love? Is it empathetic? Is it caring? Is it confident? Or is it blaming? Is it insecure? Is it broken? Is it traumatized? And that spiritual piece also is connecting to something greater than us. Whether that's family, whether that's God, whether that's our creator, that's left up to the individual. But it's connecting to something to rely on and for support and for influence. We need those positive influences back in our lives. We need the mentors, the sponsors, good, positive, loving influences. And that's really a huge premise of recovery, is to reach out and to find good, positive influence, loving influences, to nurture that spirit within ourselves, and that ability, that spirituality, where, because the disease is so self-centered, we get so wrapped up about ourselves, we turn our backs on those that we love and the community and our friends. And that spirituality is being able to connect and be in tune with those around us, and starting to become cognizant of their behaviors and how we affect them, and making those around us a priority, and realizing that it's very important, the thoughts and the feelings of everybody around us.
So what has your success rate been like with clients who beat their addictions? How often do people maybe backslide and go back to their old way of living?
Well, that's a hard question. We have a group completion, people that come to our center and complete, we're around 75, 80%. But you can't even quote me on that. I don't know the exact stat. We do reporting monthly and quarterly, and of course those numbers will change too. So I can't give you an exact, but it's about 75 to 80%. And then, there also, it depends on the measurement, right? And it depends on the amount of people. So I know you know, if we were to go for a year, or do we go to 5 months? And the measurement itself, I'm not trying to dodge the question, but I mean, if we're only looking at 2 people and 1 fail, my measurement would be 50%. But I'm looking, you know, what are the stats we're pulling from? I can tell you that our measurement, I'd be safe to be pretty accurate in saying that the people that come through our program and complete our 16-week program, we have a 70 to 80% success rate.
That's great, Tony. We only have a few short moments left here, but I wanted to ask you, how should someone go about applying to join the program?
They would just phone. They would phone. They would just have to Google Fresh Start Recovery Center, look on that site, and get the phone number, phone the center, do an over-the-phone intake. From there, our client support workers will meet with them over the phone, gather their information, and from there, we just ask them to call in to keep in touch. They get put on a wait list, and we'll bring them in when the time is right and when the bed is available.
Tony Kokol is the operations manager at Fresh Start Recovery Center, based here in Lethbridge and in Calgary. Tony, thanks so much for joining us today from Lethbridge.
Thank you, sir.
On behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News, I'm Hal Roberts. God bless, and thanks for watching.